Okay, let me end the music. Okay. Okay, welcome in everybody. Thank you for being here to the RFA Mastermind. We do these once or twice a month. This one we have opened up to the public. We wanted to allow people to come in and see what it's like to be a part of an RFA Mastermind. A few things as people come in, I will let them in. So you may hear me repeat, stay muted and just kind of, I might do that throughout the call, just letting people know that they can unmute and ask questions. This is not a one-way conversation. So we do have topics that we're going to be talking about, but as we're talking, you can raise your hand or just unmute or put in the chat. Don't be afraid to add to or ask questions. The goal is to get through the topics, and then we're going to have just open discussion, and that can be about the industry, shops, what different things that you're having going on at your shop, how you're increasing revenue, or if you're experiencing a slow time, and we'll kind of have a group conversation and everybody can chime in. And so that's how the masterminds work. We do record these. So if you are not an RFA member and you're just interested in RFA, we actually record all of our meetings and they sit on rfamembers.com platform. So you can go rewatch them at any time. So that means if you do sign up as a member, you have tons of content to follow up on, catch up on, and learn about just from these meetings being recorded. So let's go ahead and start by, I'll let Jeremy and Brian introduce themselves, and then we're going to jump right into the slides because the goal is to get through that. Again, please unmute or chat if you don't feel brave enough to unmute yourself and just ask a question, and I'll be monitoring that to add into whatever we're talking about. Go ahead.
Hey, Brian, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Well, I believe everybody here is probably going to know who I am. Brian Ahern.
Unless they're not a member.
Unless they're not a member, yeah. Co-founder of the Repairs First Association. An association, we provide a franchise level support mechanism, but without the franchise fees. Our main website is www.repairsfirst.com, and you can read up on us and go to our bios and do some research about the association prior to joining if you so choose. That's myself. Been in the industry, I forget what year it was. Jeremy, you're the one that brought me into the industry. I want to say close to 15, 18 years. Jeremy Kwaterski, who's going to be introducing himself here in a second, brought me in as a vice president to the CPR franchise many, many years ago. And so it's been a fun ride ever since then. After the franchise, I opened up with another business partner, a chain of stores, had 9 stores at one time, and then stepped away from that to start the association with Jeremy and Brad, and then later bringing in Nicole. So that's myself. Jeremy, they're over here. There you go.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining. I started in the business in 1994 as a activation shop, and I got into repair in the late 90s, 1999. Became the first authorized Nokia service center in the country. Quickly followed that with Motorola and if anybody remembers, Ericsson and AudioVox, Sanyo, some of those brands there, Qualcomm. So we quickly expanded our repair capabilities and started franchising into CPR cell phone repair in 2004. 2009, I brought in Brian Ahern, and he has worked with me since, and we're always excited to bring some of our experience to bear when it comes to helping shops succeed. And so without diving in too deep in the background, most of my experience has been in franchising, obviously, building multi-unit successes. At one point personally, I had over 8 stores myself underneath the flagship of CPR cell phone repair. But in addition, when I sold the company in 2015, we had a little over 500 stores. So pretty exciting growth for us. But a lot of that comes down to, systems and training and all these kind of things that we want to talk about in branding. And we're going to talk about as part of this series today. Pretty excited about that. Thank you for joining us. So without further ado, I guess I'll
Yeah.
throw it back to you, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, so we are talking this time about scaling for growth, so strategies for expanding multi-unit operations successfully. And it's important that all of you on the call understand where this information is coming from. This is not, you know, like if Jeremy and Brian make a comment about this, they're not coming from the aspect of theory. So this is something that they've actually physically done successfully. If you're not familiar with the CPR brand, you're probably not in the industry and you've never gone outside to go fix a phone, right? So you have to keep that in mind as you listen to their advice. Even like Brian, if you're a member, you've had an onboarding call with him. If you're not a member of RFA, you don't know, but Brian has a personal call with every single member when they onboard. And sometimes I feel like people fail to realize who they're talking to. Like, this isn't theory. They're not saying they think this works. They know it works. They did it. You don't get to 500 locations and then just think you know something works. If you've tried to open more than one location, you know that it doesn't work that way. So when these things are being talked about, just really listen. And if you are immediately saying, I've already tried that, don't work. I want you to rethink that. I really, really do. I want you to dig deep and say, how far did I go with it? How hard did I actually try on that topic? What did I actually put enough effort towards it? Because you'll hear shop owners, they're so quick to say, oh yeah, I did that. Oh yeah, well, did you really? Did you do it all the way? So just keep that in mind as we go through these topics. And then we're also going to talk about building your brand through franchising, a path to expansion. Some of you on here may not have a location yet. Some of you may have one. Some of you can have 10. Some of you, you may have 50. I mean, we've got members with hundreds of locations. So I don't know who's on here right now and what your story is. Hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about you when we kind of open the floor up. But if you're looking to expand, these are some of the basics that you're going to need to know. If you need to know more as an RFA member, you get to tap into us. You can get on a call with me, get on a call with Brian and Jeremy. You can, ask questions, email things in, jump on these masterminds, right? So just keep that in mind, that as a member, it's not just a platform where you get discounts. There's training, there's coaching, there's operations support. Brian does customized individual live training for companies. So say you have 10 stores and you want to have a sales training event for your team. You can just go on rfamembers.com, go down to Brian's little calendar thing there and schedule, and he will show up on a Zoom just like this and train a live sales training for your company, not other members on there. This is your company, your employees. So there is a lot to being an RFA member outside of discounts, which is usually what people just focus on, which are really freaking awesome. But there's other things to being a member. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll stop rambling here. I'm going to go to the first slide. It's just a recap of the topic we're going to talk about first. And then I'm going to go back to you guys on these. So we'll just kind of read through like we normally do. Lease negotiation. So why is that so important? It would be
Jeremy, you
Brian.
want to answer
Jeremy,
that one
take your
first? Or?
turn.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that all of us can recognize that the first time we sign a lease, we probably didn't read it very thoroughly. And we were probably so excited that we were going to open our first shop that, some of that legal mumbo jumbo wasn't something that we were, interested in reading. And nor did we want to invest in an attorney to read it over. And so all of us have made the same mistakes when it comes to lease. And I think this is common. Brian, you deal with this almost every day, right? So,
Yeah.
people bring leases to you now because they know that we can look at them. We've looked at hundreds and hundreds of leases. And as you expand into your second location, I encourage you to learn from some of those, things that you might have, have encountered as part of your first lease, right? And a lot of leases that we see are 10-year leases and 5-year leases. But if you're going to sign a long-term lease, make sure that the benefits are there for you. And if you reach out to the RFA or Brian, and we've got some great brokers that we can connect you with, that are going to look out for your interests, when it comes to tenant improvement allowance. If you're going to make an investment in a long-term lease, that's the biggest one. Would you agree, Brian? Tenant improvement is a huge one.
Absolutely. A lot of people don't even know that landlords will do that if you negotiate, because they don't put that in the original lease.
No, they're not going to. Yeah.
No. And even CAM expenses. I mean, you can get landlords to cap the amount of increase or the amount of CAM expenses, because let's just face it, landlords, if you're in a strip mall that has 5 other companies, you're going to pay whatever square foot your building is, for whatever the improvement is on the entire building. Well, the landlord can really say, hey, cousin Eddie, I want you to put a new parking lot on here. I'll pay $250,000.
Yeah.
I mean, then they're going to come back to you guys and say, you all owe this money. Well, to prevent landlords from doing that, you can put a maximum CAM expense in there, and other things that Jeremy knows about 12. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a big one, but I think that, when you talk about tenant improvement allowance, if people don't know what this means, but it simply is, amount per square footage. Usually it's $10 a square foot. So if you've got 1,000 square foot unit, you could get $10,000 literally in either rent abatement or physical hard currency from the landlord. You keep the receipts as you do your build out. Those items that become the walls or the countertops, those would become fixtures that are at some point it can be owned by the landlord if you move on, but they're giving you the money to do it. And that's a huge difference when you open that second location and you're going, wait a minute, am I going to come out of my pocket to do this? Not necessarily. If you find the right location, and what we found, Brian, I know you would agree, the better location, the more you're going to get from a landlord in regards to tenant improvement allowances and things like that. And are you going to pay more per square footage? Oh, for sure. Because if you're getting to a segment where you want to put a good location in somewhere, that particular shopping center is not, if you're dealing with somebody that flies by the night, they don't even have a lease agreement, or they're doing things on a handshake, that's definitely not a good location.
And I want to jump in here.
Yeah.
So before I was even officially on the board, I had to get out of a lease, and RFA was able to help me. I wrote something up to try to get out of it. There were some issues, and then they just reviewed it and gave me some pointers. So I just want to bring up again, because we're going to move to the next point. We have a lot of points to go through, and I like to keep the time right. I want to have some floor space for you guys to talk to everybody on here, but this is another thing to think about with RFA. If you're a member and you're sitting on here, don't forget that one of your benefits is having the ability to send things in like this, like email in your lease before you sign it. Can you guys just look at this? Tell me if you think of anything. That's included. This is this operation support that I think a lot of people don't realize that they have. You didn't just become a member, you became like a part of the team. We support a lot of members. I know Brian works day in and day out with members, and he works a lot with, I've seen him negotiate sign prices, help them negotiate cost of different fixtures and leases, and understanding what location to pick, what street in your area based on the community and income levels. So when you open this, like 500 locations, or you're part of being open 500 locations, it's not like you just close your eyes and you put your finger on a map and you say, we're going to open there. There is data and an understanding that goes into that. So being an RFA member, you get to tap into that. So, I just want to go back one slide. So we're talking about scaling for growth. So strategies for expanding to multi-unit operations successfully. So to do that, to expand to multiple units, maybe you have multiple units already, but you're looking to go big time. Maybe you've got one, maybe you're mobile. So first is the lease, right? Make sure you're looking at the lease. Next would be inventory management. And I guess I would say make sure you have a software that can like import and that you're labeling your inventory right. You're not buying too much. I've seen me personally, because I work with people that are new and entering the industry, I have someone that wants to go out and get a $10,000 loan and they just want to buy parts for every single phone. And that's just a terrible idea in
Right.
my point of view. So I'm going to let you guys say what you think. I always say buy what's the most frequent phone, frequent repair, and then the other parts order as needed until you learn what the demand is in your area. But I'm going to let Jeremy and Brian give their opinion on that.
Let me jump in on this one first, if you don't mind, Jeremy. I have talked with members that joined after they opened up a location, and one of their bigger complaints was, I have all this inventory and I don't know what to do with it. How do I get rid of it? Because I don't need it. I can't really send it back. And I asked them, I was like, well, who advised you to buy all this inventory? And most of the answers I get was the parts supplier. You
Of
know,
course.
you know,
Of course.
the parts suppliers, they're in sales. They're there to sell you parts. Okay. Um, they're going to give you a high level of what they're buying, people are buying throughout the system. But before you spend $100,000 or whatever on inventory, open up a new location, give me a call. You need to scale that. And
Mhm.
Nicole is right. Having a solid point of sale system that actually tracks inventory, and you tracking your inventory with correctly is going to get you there. And as far even inventory management even goes further in consistently doing inventory control. That's a whole nother topic. If you're expanding to multiple locations, you can't be in one store all day, every day. You're going to have people working for you. And how is it, and that's something that we can help you with as well. How do you have your employees do this for you and whatnot? And I'm going to pass that over to Jeremy if you have any other thoughts on
Got one more
inventory
minute, Jeremy,
management.
on this topic. You want to add
Yeah,
something?
go ahead, Nicole, real quick, because I've got probably 4 or 5 points here that I think.
Yeah, no, you go ahead because we're going to go to the next point.
Sure,
So just
sure. I
finish on
think inventory
inventory.
management, when you're talking about multiple locations, is so vital. Now, opening that second or third location, Brian's absolutely right. We would advise to our franchisees that, and I still advise locations on that second location, go in real light. You can overnight parts. I mean, we're not in the world where, we're slapping this stuff on a horse and buggy. This stuff will
Yes.
arrive here the next morning. So yeah, you might pay a little bit more in the beginning, but buying a bunch of excessive inventory that later you're not going to be able to sell is going to cost you way more. So we always talk about going in lean and mean, and then if you need something, grab it from the other store, right? Maybe
Right.
you can work with the inventory that's already existing, and maybe some of that excessive inventory that you have from the initial store location, bring some of that over. You're going to go through your inventory from the first location, say you're just opening your second. You're going to go, okay, I got 20 of these, I only need 10. And, go through all that before you even place your first order. So keeping your costs down is one. If inventory management, from a consistency between the two locations, I like to also say is, as you're starting to open a second location, you're no longer the guy turning the screws, answering the phones, helping the customers. You're no longer the guy wearing one hat for all those things or multiple hats for all those things, right? And I remember being there. I remember being that guy that did it all, right? So now it's your time to like sit above this and you're managing the inventory. And one thing I used to hate to do is I just give my techs the ability to order parts. And then the next, month, at the end of the month, I found out they ordered a bunch of excessive inventory I didn't even need. So we would manage this process for our stores. So they would turn in a list to us. They'd say, this is what I need. And I'd look at that list and go, why do you need 20 iPhone 11 LCDs? You don't need that. You need 10. But whatever it might be, that's your role. That's not a hard role. It's an easy role, but you have to manage inventory if you're doing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 locations. If you're allowing your employees to do that, it's out of control. Their
Great point.
opinion on what kind of accessories sell doesn't mean anything. Okay, they just got hired a month ago. They don't know anything. So my
Yeah.
point being is, inventory management from a standpoint of multi-unit location has to be done by the owners.
Thank you, Jeremy. Anyone recommend inventory software? Yes, on rfamembers.com, there is some. I know Brian can probably send you a list, but if you log into the portal, rfamembers.com, because I know you're a member, there, go to the benefits and you'll see, you got to go one by one and read every single benefit and there's software in there. Okay, next is brand
Well, hold on.
consistency.
God's will. I'll need to get with you on that because I'll need to make sure that it works in Ghana. Okay.
Okay, good.
Send me an email on that, if you would, please.
Brand consistency, like a franchise base, like a franchise brand, your company must have brand consistency in advertising, store layout, uniforms. Let's spend about 2-3 minutes on this, guys. Go ahead.
Jeremy, you go first.
Yeah, I'll take that. So obviously, if you've got a franchise brand, you have brand consistency, right? You walk into a McDonald's, it looks the same no matter what McDonald's you walk into. And that's how you future-proof your business. As you grow, what's your second location going to look like? Do you like the look and feel of your first location? How about you modify them both so they match? How about you upgrade some things in your first store and then add those new things to your second store and continue to build brand consistency, colors, logos, flooring, countertops. So now when you have 2 locations and you want to go 3, it's very easy. You're just replicating what you've already done. So brand consistency is important, from your uniforms, your store layout, your advertising. Is somebody seeing your ad, but it looks completely different from the last ad you made because you wanted to play with the colors and change things? I mean, that's okay in your first location, but when you've got 2 or 3 out there in the same marketplace, say for instance, I started in Orlando, I built my locations in Orlando. Say if I had 4, 5, 6 locations in Orlando and every single one looked differently, I'm not doing myself any favors on brand consistency. I want my customers feel comfortable knowing that this is a brand. This is a company that really has their shit together, so to speak, with better lack of a better word.
Right.
But they know what they're doing. And I'm not going to go in there and haggle with them because it doesn't, this is a corporate look and feel. And that is so vital as you start to expand your locations beyond 1, 2, and 3.
Brand consistency, it sets the tone for their value, perceptional value when they walk in or they call you. So, or they visit your website. It's the value perception that they place on you. So brand consistency is more than just looking pretty. It's their perceived value of you instantly and subconsciously. It's not like they're looking, so, oh, that's red and that's pretty, I'm not going to negotiate. It's subconsciously. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Next would be rotating high performers. Who wants to take that?
I'll take that one. So back when I had Phone Medic here in Kansas City, they were all in different, even though it's a suburb and whatnot. I rotated my higher performers, especially to stores that weren't doing as well. Now, I had door counters. I used Ring Central, and I tracked all the phone calls, and I had a lot of data. But whenever I had a store that said, "You just don't understand my area," I sent in a high performer to go into that store and prove that it can be done. I personally like to rotate the high performers. Of course, I'm going to be paying them more. But that way, employees are going to learn better from another employee than they are going to be from the person signing the check. You're like, and this was explained to me by one of my team members at Phone Medic. He says, Brian, when you talk, it's like God talking. You're the one that, the owner, the blah 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 blah, versus if it comes from me, I know how to talk tech a lot better than you do. And so I get that quite a bit and I understand that. So I would always have my lead deliver the messages down. So keep that in mind. Rotating your high performers, and they go to your other stores as you expand, they're going to help your other stores to get the buy-in on things in which you want done.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Next, training online and in person. Do you guys want to talk
Yeah.
about that?
Let me back up and rotate in
You
on
know,
high
I
performers
can.
real
Okay.
quick. Nicole, hold on one second. So, in addition, your high performers are also replicating best practices, and this is important. So, not only are they just the best guy at turning screws, or maybe they're just the best at customer service, right? Whatever is your best practice in your store that you've identified as the best way to do things for your store to make money, they are in charge of replicating that. And so the high performers role, and then as you expand in franchise operations, those high performers become, support managers, right? They're doing the same thing. But if you're in your own brand and you're building your brand location by location, those high performers are so vital because you're taking them from your initial location. Obviously, you was doing so well that you expanded. That being said, don't just throw a bunch of new people into a second location and expect it to do exactly what it's doing with your original location. You have to rotate those high performers. And in addition, they need to have some different scenery, right? So really, really good people like to train, and going back to what we're about to talk to here, they like to train on those best practices. They like to show people how they got where they are and how to replicate what they've done. So that brings us to training.
Awesome. Do you guys want to touch on training from
Yeah,
maybe
without a
your
doubt.
experience with multi-unit? Okay, go ahead.
Well, obviously, everybody knows that Nicole runs a company called Celbotics, and it's all about training. So, the reason we initially contacted Nicole and we wanted to work with her is she brings a tremendous amount of value in operations and technical training, and this is so vital. When you first have your first location, you can obviously you built that. You're there. You're helping the employees learn. When you go to second and thirds and fourths, you need a way for them to train, and nobody can outline this better than you, Nicole. But those operational training mechanisms are completely vital for your success. You cannot operate more than one location without having a high level of training and availability of new training. People get stagnant; they get bored. This is all I know how to do. This is all I'm ever going to be able to do. What's the next step? And so by utilizing the RFA's tremendous amount of content, we lead the industry in the amount of content that we have under training. That is so vital because we can help replicate that training that you've identified as best practices. Believe me, we know too. We've been in this business a long time. If it works for you, it's going to work for us, and it's going to work for other folks too. And you're going to find that some of that training you're really going to get some great ideas on and go, hey, maybe I shouldn't have done it that way. Even though I've been doing it this way, maybe there's another way to do it. But anyway, I'm going to let Nicole take from here on that.
I would just say really quick, because I probably could ramble for hours about training, but I would say one, if you're a member, make sure that you get on rfamembers.com and you go to the Celbotics item and you get signed up, you and your staff, for the RFA Celbotics training platform, because it's not just repair training, which is the misconception that a lot of people have. They just think it's repair training, but it's also operations training, sales training, how to answer the phone training. There is a lot of different courses on there outside of just how to do repair that you can give to your team. And then owners have their own specific login where there's owners training. So just keep that in mind. Now, if you're multi-unit, or you're looking to expand, or you're looking to turn into a franchise, reach out to Brian, because you also can get white labeled LMS at no additional cost as an RFA member with a minimum of 10 locations, or paying for the equivalent. So if you turn to franchising, that's actually like a requirement, is having training. I don't know the real legals behind it. Jeremy and Brian definitely do, but you've got to provide some sort of training. So you have to have a training platform. And it talks here about online and in person. So you see the online portal, but there's in person in conjunction with that. So the way that the training is designed on the rfamembers.com, or even if you do the white label LMS, or if you're making your own, is that the recorded content is like self-guided, where someone can sit in front of a computer with tools and all of, the devices, if they're taking repair training, and follow along. So yes, you can have a classroom setting, especially if you're a large enough brand and you need to be employing and enough people, and you've got franchise owners coming in. You're going to have a trainer with a room where, where you're onboarding people and they're going through a whole training process. But even if you've got one store and you want to train people, the way that this training is set up is that they sit in front of the computer and they watch and they follow along. Okay, these are not YouTube videos. It's very different. Say for me, the biggest tip that I can give you, because we've got to move on from this, about training, is look at training as the company has earned, the company, entity, LLC, or whatever you've got it set up like, the entity owns the rights to how it is best ran. That should not be owned by employees, because they come and go. So the company pays an employee to do a job. The employee maybe they've been there a few years, they're doing it the best way it's ever been done. They walk away from you and you didn't document the best practices that they produced through the company paying them. The company has actually been done a disservice. So I look at my company as an individual. It deserves the right to document that information and that process to the best way that it's been done. So training is not just where you go find stuff to bring in and teach. It's also you're documenting the best practices current to date and keeping it updated. You can do that on your own. There is a lot to it. You need technical people, video people, audio people, editors, understand technology. You also can just reach out to Brian and he can talk to you about the LMS package, because content development, editing, assistance on understanding how to extract information from employees and do that in a kind way where you're not going to lose people, and a strategic way where it gets done, it doesn't take years to do, is all included if you go to the white label LMS level. So I just want to say that. But you as an owner, look at training differently. It's not just how to fix phones. It's documenting the best practices, especially when we're talking about scaling, because when you're scaling, you're just replicating what's been done at your best location. Well, how do you do that if you haven't documented your best practices? So that's what I would say about training.
And I got about 30 seconds to add to that. As Nicole has mentioned, I talk to a lot of repair shop owners weekly, daily, monthly. And when we're talking about, look at the in-person training being the same thing as doing outside sales or doing marketing. Okay. Don't just do something with your team for the first couple of weeks until you think they're doing it right and then stop. Training is a consistency of things. And training them how to address a customer's needs, how to upsell that tempered glass, how to do this, how to do that. So don't just look at training as watch a video a few times and expect your employee to do it. You as the owner, either yourself or whoever you hire to do this, needs to be constantly in person going over the training and ensuring that your team is doing it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Brian. So building your brand through franchising. So a path to expansion. Okay. So trademarks. Now we're limited on time. So one of you pick each topic. Okay. So
I'll take this.
okay. I was going to say, Jeremy.
That's more Jeremy.
So when you have when you're building a brand, you obviously have a name for your company. It's important that you own the rights to that name. You've done a lot of work. You've built, that name throughout the market that you're in. Now you're opening a second and third and fourth location. And then you find out that you never trademarked it. And now there's somebody else using that name somewhere in a neighboring city. And now they're drafting off your hard work, so to speak, and confusing people that they may be going to the same location. This is called trademark violations if you have a trademark. If you don't have a trademark, they have every legal right to use your name because you never trademarked it. And so as you look at franchising or even just building your brand, look at this today. If you've got a great name, you love your business, the way you've built it, you don't think if it's Joe's repair shop, it's probably not trademarkable. Somebody's already has already got that, or it may be too generic. But you look at You Break, I Fix, or CPR Cell Phone Repair, or any number of companies out there that have trademarked their brand. That is vital. So somebody else can't just open up tomorrow and call themselves the same thing you call yourself. So it's not very
Yeah.
expensive to trademark. If anybody has any questions, they can reach out to us at the RFA, and we can point you in the right direction with some great trademark attorneys that are very inexpensive.
Yeah, I got trademark done for Celbotics, and I actually had to pursue someone in Texas that was using my name. So, and I used a LegalZoom attorney, and it only cost me like, in the end, it was like a few $100s. So,
Yeah.
it's not that hard to do. Okay,
Yep.
branding.
We pretty have gone over branding and branding
Yeah.
consistency, but I would just say when it comes to branding, and you pick your brand, it is your brand. Keep in mind that just because you might like an idea of, I don't know, Kevin's goat, I'm just making up a name here. But in this industry, you want your branding to be relative though to the industry. If you decide I like ABC Tech Talk, well, that doesn't tell somebody what you do. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, so branding and branding consistency, I think, can be tied into one that you want to be consistent to the industry in which we're in, and you want to be consistent with your branding across all locations. And Jeremy, do you have anything you want to add on that as well?
I think we covered
I
branding
think
on the last
Yeah,
slide.
we
trademarks and
pretty well did.
branding and brand
Yeah.
consistency are
Yeah.
have been covered, and
Well,
I
let's
think
get
it's
into
underlined.
FDD.
Jeremy, you take that one.
Jeremy's gonna
So, well, the first
the
step
rough
to
one.
creating a franchise, to have a franchise agreement. Somebody is buying your franchise, they need to be served a franchise agreement, which is short term is called a FDD, Franchise Disclosure Document. And that document is a legal document that basically spells out what it's going to take for them to open a location of your brand, that is a XYZ franchise, and they would sign that agreement, and you would offer them the rights to use your name. Now, the FDD protects you as a franchisor, and also outlines the legal requirements that the franchisee must follow in order to stay a legal registered franchise. So if they don't comply, and they don't pay you royalties, and they don't do the things that they're supposed to do under brand consistency, branding, royalty payments, following the business plan, and they're not doing those things that are spelled out in the FTD, then you would terminate them and remove them, because the last thing you want is somebody creating a bad name for you because you started out doing license agreements. And this is something I've seen, Brian, you and I have seen this many times. The shortcut people try to do is they'll do a license agreement and licensing somebody to use your name. But guess what? You have no protection like a franchise agreement does. You have afforded yourself no protection to how they use your name, other than the fact that they agreed to use your name. Now they can go out there and do whatever they want. They sell illegal counterfeit products. They can do whatever they want to do. And guess what? There's nothing you can do about it, because you don't have a franchise agreement and you're not established as an illegal entity offering franchises. So just to be aware, as you try to grow, do not take the license agreement route. One, it is highly illegal in most states, and two, you have no protection afforded under the law as under a license agreement to protect your brand.
Yeah, and if you're really serious about franchising, I'm just throw this out there, you can actually do consulting directly with Jeremy. So you can reach out through the info at Repairs First, or reach out to Brian. He can connect you to Jeremy. Jeremy actually works with some pretty large brands through this exact process, which
Well,
making
I
sure
work
that
with small one too. I work
small
with
ones
guys
too,
that
yeah.
got 2 or 3 locations, and they're looking to expand, and not necessarily in the repair business. But that is something that I'm willing to talk to you about if you want to jump on a call. and you want to discuss, how you can franchise your brand, you think you're ready, I can be reached at jeremy@repairsfirst.org.
.org, yeah.
So, reach
Yeah.
out to me anytime if you got any questions. But, I want to take the next one, if you don't mind. Faster than traditional growth.
Yes.
And this is the reason why I franchise, right? So initially I was building brick by brick by brick. I'm opening one location, then two, then three. And I'm going, this is going to take me 100 years to get 100 locations. There's no way I can possibly grow my brand fast enough to see an exit strategy that I foresee myself retiring in 10 years, 15 years down the road with 100 locations. How do I do that? Well, that's franchising. And licensing, no. Like I just explained, that's not the way to go. Franchising legally, protecting your brand is way faster than traditional growth. Yes, you get a little bit less money, but you're using other people's capital. Keep that in mind. So you're taking a portion of their revenue in form of a royalty, but they're paying for the cost to open that location. They're paying all the cost for inventory. They're paying the cost to build out the location. They're paying all the expenses related, and also giving you a franchise fee and a royalty. So we can discuss those things and figure out how you can make some money. But the faster you
Right.
grow, the more you make. That's essentially what it comes down to when you're also using other people's capital.
That's right. I think that was a great end. So open discussion. You guys can unmute yourself. Let's talk about, how's business going? Do you have any needs, concerns, any advice to give? Anything you want to ask about? What's in the future for your shop? If you guys want to chat in any time, if you don't feel like unmuting, you can put it in the chat. I know sometimes people are a little afraid to unmute and talk, but this is the time to do it. If you feel like your shop is struggling, or, maybe you're not struggling, maybe you're doing really well and you want to talk about that, right? Anybody, before we get off of here. So you would speak now or forever hold your peace. Again, if you're not an RFA member, definitely you should be. If you are a member, thank you for being here. We continue to do these types of topics. So
One thing I will say is a lot of times people feel that they need to be highly secretive when it comes to franchising. And maybe that's why some of these folks aren't speaking up and they've got some ideas. Don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll be glad to schedule a private one-on-one if you want. Does anybody on this call have multiple locations or at least one and they're looking to open a second or third?
nobody is going to speak. We see you. We know you're on here.
I think I put them all to sleep.
Right? They all fell asleep.
Here we go.
Droning on and on.
Oh, we've got somebody speaking. Here we go.
Go ahead, Shakri.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm planning to open a new location, and I checked like the trademark, and I like to see how I can figure out like how it works, the trademark.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah. Are you an RFA member?
Yes.
Send in an email. I mean, I know I can give him the link that I use, but you guys probably have some references too.
Yes, because I tried to figure out by myself, and also I asked my attorney, and he says to send it to the local town, like to make like a request to the local town for the name. But I think it's something else. Like I need to do it online, or
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. It's called the USPTO.gov and U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. That is USPTO.gov. That's where you would register. The paperwork initially can be a little confusing. How many locations do you have now? Just the one?
two locations.
Two.
I'm open the second one. I'm opening very soon.
Okay. Okay.
Nice.
So you are definitely doing this at the right time. And local town has nothing to do with it. The trademark is nationwide. That's going to give you all over the United States. You're going to own that trademark, providing it's something that's available, right? So you can go to USPTO.gov, click on trademarks, and click on trademark search, and you would be able to search your name and see if anybody else is using it. And if they are they using it in the same industry? This is also vital in information here. I can register CPR for obviously multiple different industries. But when I registered CPR cell phone repair, I obviously put it in the industry of repair. And that was how I was able to get CPR as a trademark in the electronics repair industry. So I want you to, take a look at that, but also look at whether somebody else is using something similar, but they're not in the same industry. And that will allow you to have an open use. And it will put you in touch with a great attorney. I've got one that can do this very quickly for you, very inexpensively, and it'll be done, within a matter of, at least the filing, okay, a matter of days. Now it does take a matter of 6 months to a year for a final, trademark serial number to be issued. But once you file, you have first to file. This is important. So anybody out there is thinking about this, well, should I do it? I don't know. I don't want to wait a year. Well, the important thing in trademarking is first to file. So if you file today, somebody else files tomorrow, guess what? You're ahead of the pack. So you will get it first. And that's so important. As we look at our own brand and we love our brands, is it so important that you're willing to ignore that you can pay to have a trademark done for $500 or $600. That includes attorney and everything, versus just chancing it and waiting it out and see if, maybe when you're ready, so I would say if you're going to do it now.
Yeah.
I
agree.
one question. For example, you say for CPR, for example, if the brand that says is cell phone repair robot, so cell phone repair and robot, and if someone has the trade CPR, but if you file the second trademark CPRR because it's a robot, this means that is illegal or is a new brand?
Well, because it's CPRR, right, and then you would follow it with cell phone repair. So CPRR, cell phone repair. The attorneys for the USPTO would possibly consider this to be a confusing trademark. So, for example, if I chose to try to trademark "you break, I fixed," and put a little square at the top like "two," that would be so confusing that generally the public would think that was the same location. So the attorneys from the USPTO would say it's bound to generate confusion, and they would deny that trademark. So keep in mind, you want to be more different enough that you can get that trademark completed. If you're too similar to somebody else, kind of like McDonald's plus, you do burgers and shakes instead of just burgers. The point being is you created confusion with that name. They're not going to allow it to be trademarked.
Yeah.
Great question. Anyone else have?
But you can, one thing, you can name your company, though, if I'm not mistaken, cell phone repair in whatever city you're in. Because the word cell phone repair itself can't be trademarked. Is that still accurate, Jeremy? That's a 15-year ago question.
That's why when I registered CPR, I didn't just register CP and R. I registered CPR cell phone repair. So those words, and you can't just register cell phone repair because that's a descriptor, kind of like automobile repair or transmission repair or lawn mowing service, right? If it's a general descriptor, you can't trademark that. So you got to have a word in front of that is your name and your brand, but you can describe your industry in that. So, what I'm just trying to think of a name off the top of my head, but it didn't come to me. But
United
You tried.
United cell phone repair, right? So you could probably get that trademark. Very good, Brian. United cell phone repair would definitely be something that could be trademarked. But you probably won't be able to do CPRR cell phone repair. Just to my advice is, when you're branding something, You don't want confusion. You want your own brand. You don't want somebody to think you're somebody else.
Right.
Great point. Any other questions? I mean, this is not a one-way conversation. Again, you know, you can unmute, talk, give tips that you might have, or ask questions. Otherwise, I think we're going to jump off here. This has been a great call, and we had some good questions. It is recorded and it'll be on the platform. And if any of you have any more questions, feel free to reach out. Jeremy and Brian, you stay on, and we'll let
I'm just
everybody
gonna
jump
put
off.
my email in here for anybody who wants to reach
Okay.
out to me.
Okay.
Be happy to discuss anything about multi-unit, you know, growth or franchising, or both.
All right. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
See
Thank you,
here.
everybody.
You. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and stop the recording.